It started with a necklace. Not one I bought. I would have remembered. It was simple, elegant, a thin gold chain with a small diamond at the center. Subtle enough to pass as modest, expensive enough that it didn't come from anywhere I could afford. I noticed it one morning as she rushed out the door. Her blouse half-buttoned, hair done better than usual for a Wednesday. I made a joke about her looking ready for a gala. She laughed it off, kissed my cheek, and told me she had a big client meeting. I didn't think much of it then. But I should have. I should have asked where it came from. I should have asked why she never wore it again. Mara had always been ambitious. That wasn't new. Even back when we met at community college, she had a fire in her I admired. A drive to climb, to do more, be more. I loved that about her. Still do, in a way that embarrasses me now. I was the steady one. The quiet, practical one. I got a job fixing HVAC units after school while she interned at a small PR firm that barely paid her bus fare. When she got her first real job, she bought herself a blazer before groceries. I laughed about it then. Told her she looked like she owned the damn building. She told me someday she would. Years passed. We got married in a courthouse ceremony with plastic chairs and one broken air vent. She cried anyway. Said she didn't care about anything but starting our life together. And I believed her. I still do. Or maybe I just want to. It wasn't one moment that tipped me off. Just a pattern. The necklace. Then a new purse, real leather, not the knockoffs we used to joke about. A pair of shoes with red soles she kept hidden in the back of the closet. The way she started staying late more often, claiming meetings were running long or that there were networking events she couldn't skip. I wanted to trust her. I still thought we were in this together. That maybe she was just finally hitting her stride. That maybe things were finally starting to work out for her. But something had changed. She smiled less around me. Laughed more at her phone. Started locking it. And the money. The way she stopped talking about money. We used to budget everything. Every week was a conversation, what bills we could afford, what had to wait, what extras we could squeeze in. Suddenly, she was paying for takeout without flinching. Picking up things we hadn't discussed. When I asked where it came from, she said her boss was giving bonuses to top performers. "He really believes in me," she said once. Her eyes lit up in a way I hadn't seen in months. I told her I was proud of her. And I was. But I also felt something I didn't want to name. Not then. It wasn't jealousy. I don't think so. It was something closer to being left behind. The first time I saw them together was by accident. I was picking her up from work because her car was in the shop. I got there a few minutes early and waited outside the office. Through the glass lobby, I saw her walking with a man. Tall. Well-dressed. Mid-40s maybe. Gray at the temples, that kind of polished confidence money breeds. They were close. Laughing. He put his hand on her back as they walked. Not a long touch. Not even inappropriate. But it lingered. She didn't see me at first. When she did, her face changed. Just for a second. Like she had to shift gears. "That's my husband," she told him. I read her lips through the glass. He smiled. Gave me a wave. Kept walking. I asked who he was. She said, "Just Marcus. My boss. Just Marcus." I looked him up that night. Marcus Trenton. CEO of the firm where she worked. Divorced. No kids. Net worth floating somewhere between rich and unimaginable. I stared at pictures of him online longer than I should have. Forbes features. Interviews. Some podcast clips. He spoke in that calm, measured way people do when they know no one ever interrupts them. Everything about him screamed control. Precision. I told myself I was being paranoid. I wasn't. A week later, Mara came home late again. I was already in bed, pretending to scroll through my phone. She kicked off her shoes and sighed like she'd just run a marathon. "Long night?" I asked. "Yeah." Marcus had us stay late to prep for a pitch tomorrow. There was that name again. Casual now. Familiar. Like he was part of our home. Do you ever work with anyone else there? She didn't like that question. I could tell. She froze for half a second before forcing a smile. Of course I do. He just likes to stay involved. I nodded. Said nothing. She disappeared into the shower. When I got up for water later, I noticed her laptop open on the kitchen counter. She always closed it before. This time she must have forgotten. Or trusted me too much. I wasn't looking for anything. That's the honest truth. But her messages were open. Not emails. Something else. Some internal chat app from work. There were messages from Marcus. Nothing explicitly damning. But familiar. Personal. Jokes that didn't belong between a boss and employee. Inside references. Mentions of gifts he'd given her, a bag, a bracelet. A weekend trip to clear her head after a stressful quarter. I scrolled faster. Felt my stomach twist. Then I saw one message that stopped everything. Last night was incredible. You deserve the world. Don't ever settle for less. Dated 2 weeks ago. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't confront her either. Not then. I needed to be sure. I needed more than a message. More than a feeling. The next day, I called in sick and followed her to work. I know how that sounds. I hate that I did it. But something primal had taken root in me. A quiet rage. A need to understand what kind of world I was living in. One where my wife laughed with another man. Slept with him. Took things from him I couldn't give. She met him outside the building. Climbed into his car. They drove off. I followed at a distance. They went to a hotel. Not the kind for conferences. I didn't follow them in. I sat in my car, fists clenched, heart hollow. She stayed for 2 hours. When she came out, she looked different. Relaxed? Satisfied. She was smiling as she walked back to his car. He handed her a small bag. Something from a designer brand. She kissed his cheek. I drove home before she saw me. That night, she brought home Thai food. My favorite. Kissed me on the head. Told me I looked tired. I stared at her across the table, wondering how long she'd been performing. How many versions of her existed. And what it said about me that I didn't stop her. The next few days passed in a kind of muted fog. I went through the motions, work, home, sleep, but nothing felt real. I was a man playing the role of a husband, but I couldn't remember the last time the part was honest. She kept texting during the day, like everything was fine. Sending pictures of lunches with coworkers, little notes about how stressful her meetings were, how much she missed me. And I responded too. Not because I believed it, but because I needed to know what the performance looked like. I started watching her. Not in a dramatic way. Just noticing. Taking notes. She wore different perfume now. Not the kind I used to buy her on birthdays. Stronger. Sharper. Like she wanted to leave a scent behind wherever she went. She spent more time on her appearance in the mornings. And she started sleeping with her phone under her pillow. Every time it buzzed, I felt something sink inside me. I stopped eating dinner with her. Made excuses? Said I had to work late? And she didn't seem to mind. Maybe she was relieved. One night I asked her directly, "Do you ever think about how much we've changed?" She looked up from her laptop, blinking slowly. "What do you mean?" "I mean us. This." She smiled, but it was faint. "Change is good, isn't it? I mean, we're not 22 anymore. We've grown. But do you ever miss how it used to feel?" She paused. "That 1 second too long. I guess. But I like who we are now. Don't you?" I didn't answer. Because I wasn't sure of who we were now. And I wasn't sure she did either. I went to see an old friend. Chris. We hadn't talked in a while. Life gets in the way. But he'd known Mara too. Had been at our wedding. I didn't give him the full story. Just pieces. You ever think someone you love is living a life you don't get to see? I asked. He didn't blink. Just nodded. Sure. That's marriage, isn't it? Everyone has their shadow life. But one that doesn't make it to the dinner table. I laughed at that, but it felt more like choking. She's hiding something, I said quietly. Something big. You want to know? Or do you want to keep pretending you don't? I didn't answer. But that night, I made a decision. I hired someone. A private investigator. I'm not proud of it. It felt like something from a cheap movie. But I needed to see it. I needed proof. Because if I didn't, I knew I'd spend the rest of my life doubting myself. The guy was quiet, professional. Didn't ask questions. Just took the photos. Took the time. 3 days later, he emailed me a folder. I waited an hour to open it. The first picture was of them at a restaurant. Not some hidden place. Somewhere downtown. Her hand on his arm. His leaning in close. Both smiling like teenagers. The second, his hand resting on her thigh beneath the table. The third, them entering his building. Late at night. The fourth, her leaving alone, hair messy, eyes down. The rest blurred together. There was no denying it anymore. It wasn't a rumor. Or a misunderstanding. Or a one-time mistake. It was an affair. A calculated, sustained betrayal. With a man who could give her things I never could. Gifts. Vacations. Power. I shut the laptop and sat in silence for hours. I wasn't angry. Not exactly. I was dismantled. Like someone had taken apart the structure of who I thought I was. What I thought we were. That night, she came home glowing. Said she'd been promoted. Marcus thinks I'm ready for bigger things, she said. He believes in me. I just stared at her. She mistook my silence for all. Don't worry, she said. We're finally going to be okay. And in a twisted way, she was right. We were finally going to be something. Just not what she thought. For the next week, I lived like a ghost in my own home. She kept celebrating. New clothes, new handbags, champagne in the fridge. She'd bring home takeout from places I couldn't pronounce. Told me it was a thank you to herself. I ate in silence, sometimes not at all. She talked about Marcus more and more. Not like a boss. Like a mentor. Like a savior. Every compliment he gave her became a gospel truth. Every gesture a sign of faith. I sat across from her as she bragged about a man she was sleeping with, as if she didn't think I could possibly suspect a thing. Or maybe she thought I wouldn't care. Maybe in her mind, I was just a man who kept the lights on and the floor swept. Someone convenient to come home to when the glitter wore off. One night she tossed her heels by the door and said, "You wouldn't believe what Marcus did for me today. He brought me into a meeting with the board. Me. Like I was one of them. And how'd that feel? Like I belong. Finally. Like everything I worked for is paying off." I wanted to say, "And what exactly did you pay?" But I didn't. Because she wasn't ready to hear it. And maybe I wasn't ready to say it. The investigator followed up once. Said he had more photos if I needed them. I told him no. The images were burned in. I didn't need more proof. I needed a plan. I began quietly collecting everything. Bank statements. Credit card charges. Messages. Anything that showed where she went and how often. I wasn't thinking about divorce. Not yet. I was still caught between disbelief and paralysis. Some part of me was waiting for her to come clean. To confess. To break under the weight of it. She didn't. She got promoted again. And the night she told me, she wore a new dress. Sleek, black, expensive. She spun for me in the living room like a ballerina in a jewelry box. "What do you think?" I looked her in the eye and said, "It's beautiful." She smiled. Walked to the kitchen. Poured 2 glasses of wine. "To new beginnings," she said. I raised my glass, tasted nothing, and told myself this was the last lie I'd swallow. I visited her office the next afternoon. Unannounced. I told the receptionist I was her husband. Said I was just dropping something off. She smiled and called upstairs. When Mara came down, she looked pale. Everything okay? Yeah, I said. Just wanted to surprise you. Take you to lunch? She hesitated. Just long enough. Marcus and I have a meeting, she said. I can't today. Rain check? Of course. We stood there a moment too long. She reached to touch my arm. I pulled away like it was reflex. I love you, you know, she said quietly. Do you? She blinked. Then forced a smile. What kind of question is that? An honest one. She said nothing. I left. And that night, I slept on the couch. A week later, I confronted her. It wasn't dramatic. No shouting. No slamming doors. Just me, sitting at the table, holding a printed copy of the message he'd sent her. Last night was incredible. You deserve the world. Don't ever settle for less. I slid it across to her. She went white. Then red. Then something I hadn't seen before, furious. You went through my things? That's your response? She stood. Pushed the chair back. You violated my privacy. You violated our marriage. We stared at each other. Years of silence piled between us. It didn't mean anything, she said. Don't insult me. He helped me. Believed in me. You don't know what that feels like. Then tell me. Explain it. Tell me how fucking him was part of your career path. She slapped the table. I did what I had to do. I was tired of waiting. Tired of scraping by. Tired of you pretending like we were building something when we were barely surviving. The words hung there. There it was. The truth. I was her waiting room. She sat down again. Quiet now. He offered me things. Respect. Access. And yes, money. And you think that makes this okay? No. But it made it necessary. That broke something in me. I stood up. Walked out. Didn't take a bag. Didn't say goodbye. I just left her there, alone, in her kingdom. While I walked into the rubble. I moved into a furnished studio downtown. Month-to-month lease. No frills. Just enough space for a mattress, a table, and whatever was left of me. The first night, I sat on the floor with the takeout box in my lap, staring at a blank wall, thinking about how you can know someone for years and still never really know how far they'd go when handed a key to a different life. Mara texted the next morning. Can we talk? I didn't respond. She sent another that night. Please don't shut me out. I didn't mean to hurt you. And maybe she didn't. Maybe she thought she could live two lives side by side. One for power. One for comfort. One for diamonds. One for dinners on the couch with me. But the moment she made that trade, she lost the right to say she meant no harm. You don't accidentally sleep your way into another life. I told my boss I needed time. He gave me a week off. Said I looked like I hadn't slept in days. He was right. I spent those days walking the city. Watching strangers. Looking at couples and wondering how many of them were telling each other the truth. How many were living on borrowed time. I ended up outside her office one afternoon. Just stood across the street, hands in my pockets. She came out an hour later. Not with Marcus. Alone. She looked tired. Or maybe just older. I didn't call to her. I just watched as she disappeared into the crowd. That night, she emailed me. A long letter. She said she was sorry. Said she never meant to make me feel small, but she had grown tired of feeling invisible. I wanted more, she wrote. And when he offered it, I took it. I didn't think about the cost until it was too late. She tried to justify it, then pulled back. Apologized again. Said she still loved me, but didn't know what kind of love it was anymore. I missed the way you looked at me when we had nothing. When that was enough, I closed the email and sat with it for a long time. I didn't write back. Some things don't need replies. I started going to therapy. The counselor asked what I wanted out of the sessions. I want to know if I'm broken, I said. Or just stupid. She told me betrayal makes smart people feel stupid. That grief isn't always about death. You're mourning the version of her you thought was real, she said. That stuck with me. Because I did love that version. The one who wanted a life with me even if we struggled. The one who danced barefoot in the kitchen. The one who once cried because I bought her a second-hand copy of her favorite book. That woman had vanished. And in her place was someone who wore power like perfume, who thought loyalty could be traded for status, who mistook expensive gifts for validation. I mourned her every night. Mara called me after 3 weeks. I let it go to voicemail. She left a message. Her voice was small. I don't expect you to forgive me. But I need you to know I chose wrong. He was a means to an end, and now I can't even look at the end without seeing what I destroyed to get there. It should have made me feel better. But it didn't. Because I wasn't angry anymore. I was just empty. And she was right. She chose wrong. I ran into her by accident. It had been over a month since I left. Since I walked out of the life we built and left her standing in the center of it. I was grabbing coffee from a shop near her office, not thinking about her at all. And then there she was. Standing in line, staring at the menu like it was written in another language. She saw me before I could turn away. Hey, she said. Just that. No smile. I nodded. Hey. We stood in silence for a moment. Then she said, You look different. That good or bad? It's honest. That stung more than I expected. Like she knew I used to wear my hope like armor. Do you have time? She asked. I didn't. I said yes anyway. We sat in the back corner of the shop. Her hands wrapped tight around her cup. Mine stayed flat on the table. I miss you, she said. I miss us. I stared at her, trying to remember how it felt to believe her. What do you miss exactly? The way we used to talk. Laugh. The way you looked at me like I mattered. You did. She flinched. I know. That's the worst part. No, I said. The worst part is you traded that for someone who made you feel powerful. She didn't deny it. He made me feel seen, she said. Like I was worth something. And I didn't? You made me feel safe. Loved. But never big. I wanted to be more than grateful. I wanted to be unstoppable. So you became someone else. She nodded. And do you like her? Her eyes filled. No. Not really. We didn't speak for a while. Finally, she said. He ended it. Said I was too messy. That I wasn't what he thought I'd be. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was inevitable. She traded her soul for a seat at the table and found out she was just the centerpiece. I'm sorry, she whispered. I believed her. For the first time. But it didn't change anything. After that day, she didn't reach out again. Not once. I think she understood. We were beyond repair. Not because I couldn't forgive her. But because forgiveness isn't the same as return. She was no longer the woman I married. And I was no longer the man who would love her anyway. I started writing again. Nothing serious. Just journal entries. Trying to make sense of what happened, how it ended, who I became through it. The pages are full of questions I may never answer. But one line keeps repeating. She needed a man with a price tag. I was the one without one. And that wasn't my weakness. It was my proof. Months passed. I moved to a new place, nothing fancy, just clean, quiet. A second-floor walk-up where I could see the sky if I leaned out far enough. It didn't feel like home. But it didn't feel like hers either. That was enough. Some nights, I still thought about her. Not in anger. Not in longing. Just recognition. Like touching a scar and remembering the cut, but not the pain. She emailed once. No subject line. Just a single sentence. I hope you're okay. I didn't reply. There's nothing left to say when the words she should have spoken came too late. When the damage wasn't just emotional, but spiritual, like someone had taken your reflection and cracked it from the inside. I heard she left the firm. No farewell party. No press release. Just gone. I wondered if she quit or was asked to leave. Maybe both. The people who use you usually don't like keeping you around once you remind them you're real. I started dating again. Carefully. Hesitantly. You don't walk out of betrayal and straight into trust. But I learned something. Not everyone wants to climb over you to reach something shinier. Some people just want to walk beside you. I met someone kind. Not flashy. Just present. A woman who asked questions and listened, even when the answers weren't tidy. She didn't ask about Mara. I didn't offer. Some ghosts don't need introducing. The last time I saw Mara, it was from a distance. She was sitting alone at an outdoor cafe, staring into a coffee cup like it held something worth salvaging. She looked older. Not just in age, in posture. In spirit. She didn't see me. I kept walking. And in that moment, I realized something. She didn't destroy me. She cracked something, yes. Broke pieces I had to learn how to rebuild. But she didn't take everything. She couldn't. Because what she was chasing, status, prestige, a life wrapped in velvet and champagne, it was never real. Not like what we had been, once. And maybe that was the cruelest part for her. She sold the real thing for a version that couldn't love her back. And that's not something she can buy again. Not ever.